I mean, but my point is that if you get to him, it means a lot of guys got hurt. Here's my thing. Is James Conner durable enough? That's a very, very fair question at this point. You know, I can't remember the last time he had a season where he didn't have an injury that kept him out of games.
And we go all the way back to college.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, he had the 1 year he was out. In fact, you know, I think, was it before or after he was diagnosed with cancer?
It was before with the knee injury.
He had a knee injury that he lost the whole year with.
Yeah.
You know, he's had injuries that have kept him out of games and kept him out. And, you know, this is like about his, second or I think this might be his third injury this year.
And don't forget, the last couple years, what did he have? An ankle injury, a shoulder injury. Do you think it's just he isn't durable, or do you think it's just because, you know, it's 300-pound guys taking on 250-pound guys, and he's a physical runner?
He is. I understand that. But my point is, you know.
He's not an elusive runner.
He's not. But my point is, you know, if you're not available.
Yeah. Well,
that's a problem, too.
I wouldn't mind seeing what Darren Hall could do.
That was one of the problems I thought with Le'Veon Bell is, you know, by the end of the year, he was always hurt.
And, yeah, he was almost traded. They couldn't find a trading partner for Le'Veon Bell there on Tuesday. So let's get out to the phone lines. We're going to go out to Nunzio and Braddock. What's up, Nunzio?
Hello, man. Things I wanted to touch upon. I really was upset. A bunch of people from Pittsburgh on Sunday. The internet was full of, at halftime, quotes, Conner is not a running back. He sucks. The quarterback is not a first-string quarterback. He should be gone. Why didn't Duck start the second half? You people need to watch the game. You should have been on spot in the first place.
Wait, Nunzio, who's saying this stuff? Because I don't think any of us were saying it.
No, it was just on the internet.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, people on the internet, what do they know? You know, I mean, I totally get it. I get where you're going with it, but, you know, I mean, sometimes people are a little unrealistic.
I know, and you know, we always stink when we come out of a bye week. At least we play a bad first.
Well, actually, Nunzio, yeah, they've been rusty, but under Mike Tomlin, they've actually been pretty good. 8-4, 3-1 at home. They've had some good numbers out of the bye week, and when you look at games after the bye week, they're almost batting 700. So there's 10 games left. That means they win 7 out of 10. They're 9-7. That's a realistic possibility. If history is any indication, odds are they would win 7 out of 10.
I'm very optimistic that they're going to get into the playoffs, and at which point Tomlin should be accoladed for the best season he ever had.
You know, I appreciate your call, Nunzio. I don't know if they're going to get into the playoffs. I think that's still up in the air. I mean, the odds are really against them of getting in.
Well, they have, 3 wins now? And they've got
3-4. They could go to 4-4 this week.
They've got 9 games left. They're 3-4. They're going to need 6 out of their last 9, 6-3.
Yeah, we'll get them to 9-7 and possibly a wild card.
Right.
And if they beat the right teams, I think they would have the tiebreaker. You know, if you lose the NFC
This
teams,
is an important game to win. If you're going to lose one, lose the Rams.
If they lose this game, I'm basically saying that they're out of the playoff picture.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough mountain to climb.
Because you're not going to catch the Ravens for the division, and now you're kind of far back of that AFC wild card picture. All right, let's go out to Larry in Ford City. What's up, Larry? Larry, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering about Ramon Foster and the offensive line. Is everybody healthy up front?
No, that's a big problem. We talked about it early on the show. Marquise Pouncey has a calf injury. Ramon Foster is in concussion protocol, and you never know. There's never a timeline on a concussion.
Right. That's the problem. Wasn't that what Mike Tomlin said the other day in his news conference? That you just got to let the process play itself out and see what happens.
And I didn't see either one of those guys today in the locker room. I'm sure that they were over there, but I didn't personally see him.
I did the Ramon Foster show last night without Ramon Foster.
Well, there you go right there. So, I mean, that tells you a lot. Usually Ramon Foster, injured or not, he's a guy that doesn't miss those shows.
Right, but a concussion is different.
Yes, I totally agree.
I think they probably told him, you know what, you got to stay in bed or stay in a dark room or whatever. I'm assuming he didn't want to be, at a place where, that we were at a bar or whatever. I'm sure he didn't want,
Yeah, the good news with Mason Rudolph, I mean, he flat out said he did not have any after effects of the concussion. Light didn't bother him. He felt like he was ready to go right away. And Rudolph said this was only his second concussion ever. So I don't know how many Ramon Foster's had, but you don't want to mess around with a concussion, and those things can linger on. You don't know. It could be a day. It could be a year. We've seen. You saw what happened with Sidney Crosby over the years. All right, let's go out to Ernest in Monroeville. What's up, Ernest?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thanks
I like
for calling.
The show.
Thank you.
What I want to talk about is some of these people that cry and ask them for Duck Hodges. You know, my thing is Mason Rudolph, he's only started, 4 or 5 games now?
Yeah.
And he's already came off of the concussion and the bye week. And, you know, his accuracy in the game wasn't there, but he improved throughout the game. So my thing is I think the fans ought to rally behind him. If he's going to be the Steelers' future quarterback, leave him alone. Let him make his mistakes, but support him.
You know,
Thank you.
Ernie, I totally agree with that. I mean, he was bad in the first half, and he has a good excuse for being bad in the first half. A really good excuse.
He was off for a long
Yeah.
time, and again, I think people forget.
3 weeks.
This was only his 4th start.
I'm not down on Mason Rudolph.
There's no reason to be. He's got 9 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions.
Well, you have all these people clamoring for Duck Hodges. But Duck Hodges wasn't great in that LA game.
You have a very small but vocal minority of people that are screaming for Duck Hodges. And you know what? If he didn't have a cool nickname and a neat backstory, nobody would want him playing.
And a cool T-shirt that he got in California. Yeah.
Nobody would want him playing. Come on. Seriously.
All right. We got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls. Some of your tweets coming up next. Stay right there.